Well, this is Arcpoint Sessions. This is brought to you by Arcpoint Creative. This is a series about slowing down and having conversations with fantastic artists and creative minds, people that are doing work, asking the questions, and shaping what the field looks like now. And today I'm really excited to be joined by Emad. If you've been paying attention to the viola world, you've probably already heard his name many times. He's the 2024 Primrose Competition winner, student at Curtis, and someone who I guess recently just won a prize at the Tokyo competition, many prizes, and someone whose playing is incredibly refined and full of intention. Thank you so much for joining me. I've enjoyed following your journey, and really, it's rare to see someone who has such clarity on the viola, especially so early on to your viola journey. I'm jealous. So
Thank
before
you
we
so
trace
much.
your, yeah, of course, of course. Before we trace your timeline and everything and get to the nitty-gritty of it
Hmm.
all, I just want to break the ice with kind of a thought-provoking question. It'll be interesting. So
Hmm.
if it's something we want to stray away from,
Hmm.
I'll ask a different one. But I want to ask this. What are you tired of hearing in the classical music world, and what do you wish more people would say out loud?
That's a really good question. Oh, um, in the classical music world, I think, um, I think people oftentimes, it is a very serious field, but I feel that many people take it way too seriously. And I think that within this bubble of classical musicians, I mean, yes, I've done a lot of competitions. I've, done a lot of auditions competing against others, but many people, especially students, I feel, take it too seriously and take it upon themselves to compete at a high level against each other. And I
Mhm.
think this is so wrong because it's the essence of, this music is collaboration and, to be inspired by others and to, we're all like a big family here and there's not many of us. So why would we, tear each other apart and tear each other down when, it should be a community. So I feel like there is too much competition, and I do realize, the more high level I've become, that it is there, and because we're all competing for the same small number of jobs that are out there to really be able to sustain ourselves. But yeah, I'd love to see more, more a sense of community and less a sense of, I have to be better than everybody else, because it's really not about that.
Nice. I really like that answer. It took me a
Yeah.
really long time, probably until last year, to come to that conclusion. And I think it's really cool to see these competitions integrate chamber at least. But I very much
Mhm.
agree, like, especially in today's day and age, not to get too far into the woods there, but we
Yeah,
that
yeah,
community aspect of this musicianship and that
yeah.
it's
Because
what
I think,
brings point into it.
yeah, I think everyone has a place and everyone has a different role, and we need everyone at, everyone plays a strong role in
Mhm.
that. And of course, not everyone can be, the big soloist or, the big chamber musician. And but the other roles are very essential too. We need really great teachers. We need like beginner student teachers. I mean, that's how I started.
Mhm.
We need all levels of
Yeah.
teaching and performing and bringing people to classical music. And so I think everyone is so important in a different way, and not everyone has to be the best player necessarily.
Yeah. Accessibility is big. Yeah, very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Cool to open it up with a hard
yeah,
question, but thank you for
yeah,
being a good sport.
yeah.
So let's go back to the early days and kind of break down
Mhm.
who you are. Where have you come from? So I know you started at viola at age 10, right?
Yeah.
Um, and you started similar to me, right, through a school program. Was it Suzuki or
Mhm.
just like
It
orchestra?
was not. It was like a elementary school strings program. They had like a small string orchestra where you could choose to play an instrument. And my older brother chose cello, and he's 2 years older than me. So he had been playing cello for 2 years. And during those 2 years, I was begging my parents for lessons. And
Mhm.
that's all I wanted, was just to like learn a string instrument. And so when my time came, I could choose an instrument. And so I ended up being torn between viola and saxophone, but
Oh,
I ended up choosing viola. I'm happy now.
yeah.
But yeah, so I ended up choosing viola, and I started playing in this elementary school string orchestra, and I was still begging my parents for, private lessons. I really like I was practicing, I was learning all this stuff, and it was too
Mhm.
easy for me actually to be at that like really slow pace. Like we were doing
Humble
pizzicato
brag.
for like
Nice.
months and months. Yeah. Yeah. So, but I had an elementary school teacher. I'm actually still in touch with her today, and she was so inspiring for me because, like, as soon as I started playing, she came up to me and she was like, "Amon, like if you really wanted to do this, like, you could become a professional musician." And she
Mhm.
saw that in me, like, even though I was just like starting to pluck the strings, and so that really motivated me. And so I actually played in a quartet that first year in fifth grade, and we
Wow.
played a couple like I mean really easy quartet arrangements, but it was really like my first experience playing, playing chamber music, and I just absolutely loved every aspect of it. And so um yeah, did you want to hear more about
Yeah, I mean,
the
keep
whole
going. That's
journey? And
This is
okay.
awesome. Yeah.
And then the following year, in the middle of the school year, my parents finally allowed me to get a private teacher. And
Mhm.
that's when I met Shonda Lowry Sachs, who was my very first actual private teacher. And my older brother was taking private lessons from her mother, and
Mm.
we got her contact through her mother, but she was not taking students at the time because she had cancer, and so she was going
Mm.
undergoing treatment. But she actually took me in as a student while she was doing her treatment, which was very, very,
Right.
generous of her.
Mhm.
And she passed away a couple years ago. But yeah, so I took lessons from her for a couple years, and then when I was 13 years old, about to turn 14, I moved to Toronto, and my parents' job moved, my dad's job moved, and I was really devastated because I didn't know anything at that time, and I just thought, my life was ruined, and I was never going to play viola again because, I
Right.
didn't know anyone there, and my parents didn't
Mm.
know anything. My parents aren't really musicians, so they really don't know anything about classical music. So I thought, it was over for me, for my viola dreams of going to Juilliard one day. And so we moved there, and my teacher knew a lady who had played in the Detroit Symphony before and was now assistant principal in Toronto,
Mm.
Teresa Rudolph. And so she connected me with her, and she was kind of like everything for me during my high school years. She really shaped me and really, you know, built up my technique, gave me confidence, built up my repertoire, and was there for me not just as a viola teacher, but like as like a mother kind of. She kind of nurtured me a lot. And so I went to see her, and she also wasn't taking students at the time, but I played for her, and she agreed to take me. And she urged me to apply to this summer program, Morningside Music Bridge, in
Mm.
2019. And so I applied, and I really didn't think I would get in because it's pretty high level, but they accepted me, and I went that summer. And I think that summer really revealed to me how good people are out there, because this program brings in really international people at a really, really high level from the ages of 12 to 18. And so when I went there, like I was shocked because I was like the worst violist. And I'd never been in an environment where I was like the worst violist because,
Right.
there aren't that many of us out there. And so it really inspired me and also shocked me. And, it made me like take a step back, and I was like, can I actually do this?
Mm.
And but that actually gave me a lot of motivation because I met all of these great teachers,
Mhm.
and I met my teacher today, Sinyun Huang, and Misha Amory was there too, and Roberto Diaz. All the Curtis teachers were there, Juilliard
Mhm.
teachers, international teachers, and they told me they were like, one day you should audition for Curtis, and so that
Nice.
planted that seed, and that was when there was this fire inside of me that really wanted to go to Curtis. And so for the next 2 years, I practiced a lot, and my teacher helped me a lot. And so when I was 16 years old, I auditioned, and it was COVID actually. So my audition was online over Zoom, which was not great.
Well,
But
welcome back to Zoom. You're back at
yeah,
home.
I'm back. I'm back at home. So I did it from my living room
Hmm.
um, in Canada, and I got in. I was so excited. It was like I don't think I've been that excited like ever.
Right.
And then I went to Curtis, and that's when I started practicing a lot more because I also realized how good people were, and
Hmm.
being in an environment where you're you know really not close to being the best is I think the best medicine because you learn from everyone around you. You see what they're doing to get there. What kind of people are these players because you have to have a certain work ethic also. Um, so I learned a lot being at Curtis, and that's when I started doing these competitions. And so for the past 4 years, I've been at Curtis. It's been a great environment. I've made so many amazing friends, and yeah, I started doing competitions, and I have mixed feelings about them. And some of them went really well. Obviously, I mean, many. I've been much more fortunate than most people. Some of them didn't work out. You can't win everything, and
Right.
but I'm really grateful with how far it's gotten me, and I think, yeah, I'm looking forward to see what's to come. I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen, but it's my last year coming up at Curtis, and so I'll
Okay.
have to see what I'll do after that. But yeah, that's basically the trajectory up
Yeah.
up until now.
That is awesome. And it's such a
Um,
like it is a relatively short time frame. Like I feel old because I'm 25. You're 21, 20,
I'm 20.
20.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
like really not that much age
Mhm.
difference. And you've just
Yeah.
now finished. This would be undergrad, right? Or
Yeah,
bachelor's.
I have I have one more year left of bachelor's. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, a lot of things that you've accomplished just in that small time
Yeah.
frame. So it's cool. And
Thank
I think
you.
this helps your insights and background would be really influential to anyone that's young out there that kind of,
Mm,
they're starting in a young on an orchestra or something of that regard.
mm,
Anything's
mm.
possible type of thing. Wouldn't you agree? Like
Yeah.
wander
Yeah,
that.
yeah, anything, and like you're not supposed to know what's gonna happen and
Right.
what
I
like
don't think you
I
can know,
I'm
right?
I'm like flying blind right now. I have no idea
Mhm.
what's gonna happen or but
Yeah,
I just like take it one day at a time. And if you work hard and practice well, you don't have to practice that long. You just have to practice well and be a good person, and then
mhm.
things will come in the way that they're supposed to for you, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I know you said that Curtis in all of these environments like Morningstar and everything, is it Morningstar? Correct me. Is that right?
Morningside.
Morningside. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, all of these really fantastic programs, they kind of made you feel overwhelmed, if that's the correct word to use. It's a lot
Yeah.
of,
At the beginning, yeah,
right.
overwhelmed. Yeah.
Would you say, with that, the kind of feeling like you're the bottom of the barrel or, kind of
Mm,
climbing the ranks there and everything, what was going through your head as something as a narrative, your mindset to help you push through? Because I kind of get the gist that you might not be the comparison type where you're like, okay,
mm,
well, I need to beat
yeah.
this guy, to get up to the next
Mm,
rung of
yeah.
the
I
ladder,
think I think yeah, it was never about, becoming better than this person or, you
Hmm.
know, playing more into it or, but I think it was more like an admiration for others playing and elements that they had that that I look up to a lot, and I seeing what makes people special in their own way, and trying to find something in myself and my own playing that is special and unique. Because I think that all all musicians that like strike someone and that can really move someone, they all have an element or multiple elements that that are special to them. And the thing is, no one can replicate it because you can't really teach it.
Hmm.
That's what I found. And so I think everyone should find in themselves, what makes their own playing unique, and um, really hone in on that, and think about it a lot, because those things that come naturally to one person's playing, you can't really teach. And some people have certain facilities that others don't have, but others will have a certain facility that that person doesn't have. So it's a lot of give and take. And I I really don't think there's not anyone who has everything. You can't have it all, but
Yeah.
you have everyone has their own unique quality to it, which I think is why people love playing these instruments and listening to these instruments so much.
So what makes art art? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, to this point, I think it's kind of segues perfectly into the next thing I was going to get into. Um, you're so young, and this is such a cool thing that you already think this way. This is a very artistic mindset
Mm,
that I think is so important. And a lot of people kind of, you know, avoid thinking about this till way later in life, I feel like. So how do
mm,
you, when you're in the practice room, right? Um, Oftentimes people from the outside go, "Oh, these musicians are just focused on technique. They're drilling the same passage over and over again, yada yada yada," right? How do
mm,
you, what is your mindset like? How do your routine to get this artistic um voice?
mm.
How do you develop that?
I mean, I think obviously, it's very important to practice technique, and, to
Right.
be able to play scales, and, be able to play in tune.
What are those? I don't know what
And
skills are.
yeah, I wouldn't know either. But I think every time you pick up the instrument, someone picks up the instrument, and for me, it's really an experimentation.
Mhm.
And I hear a lot, I've read a lot of articles, and, the great, great musicians, no one taught them how to, someone will have such a beautiful vibrato. I think it was Milstein, actually. He said, like, no one taught him how to do vibrato. No one taught
Yep.
him how to get this beautiful sound. It's all, it's in the end, it's all our internal work, and how
Mhm.
smart we can be with ourselves in experimenting to find the quality that we hear inside. And I think oftentimes, and also for myself, like, there's still so many things I want to do with the instrument that I hear inside that, like, aren't coming out. And so I
Right.
think it's a matter of experimenting to find how close to that you can get. And I think once you think you have it, that's when it's over. You stop improving, because once you think you have it, you don't. And it happens so many times, especially with young prodigies. There's so many at school, and I've met so many. Like, once you think you're there, like, you stop improving. It's just so you just have
Yeah,
to keep searching for something and keep experimenting. And I think practicing should always be an experimentation.
absolutely. I like you.
Yeah,
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 you can't get complacent, right? If you become
yeah,
complacent,
yeah,
that means you
yeah,
probably are losing passion. And I think that's a very
yeah,
big thing to realize is there's no end. Um,
yeah.
it's a life thing too. That's why I'm a
No.
Suzuki person, and
Oh, okay.
the big type of thing we try to preach is character growth within our lessons and everything.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's so important and integral to music, I
yeah,
think.
yeah. Of course.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about your mentors and everything. How, give an insight, like a sneak peek, how do your lessons go with people, and how do they help you shape um your artistry? Like how do,
Mm.
just if we were a fly on the wall.
Yeah. So when I was in high school with Teresa, I mean, I did not have the like technical foundation to really play the large scale repertoire, and so she worked a lot on me on, like, basic technique, doing a lot of scales. She was hard on me, which was good. and I
Hmm.
really needed that at that time. And she was always there. I'd send her practice videos throughout the week for feedback. I'd show her pictures. I'd be like, "Am I doing this right?" Um, and a lot of etude scales. So I think it was really good for me. She really pushed me. Like when I was 16, she made me play Wieniawski's Scherzo Tarantelle on
Oh my
viola,
goodness.
which was like almost brought me to tears, but really
Hmm.
humbled me
Yeah.
because she was like, if you should be able to play this, we're violists, but at this day and age, violists need to have good technique, and so she really pushed me, which I'm really grateful for now at this point. And when I went off to Curtis, actually I had a really big growth spurt right when I got to Curtis, and so I went from the viola being kind of big to the viola being small compared to so many of my peers who are playing the same size instrument. Because
Hmm.
I'm 6'1" and I have really long arms. And so it created a kind of tension because it was so hard for me to play before, but it became a lot easier because my arms got so much longer. And so a lot of the beginning work with my current teacher, Xingyun Huang, was kind of addressing that. And again, it was a lot of, she told me, and we still talk about it, like it's a lot of experimentation for me
Hmm.
because she's really short, and for her, playing the viola is so different because, she found a way for herself to get around it. But for
Right.
me, it's, eliminating the tension because I have to realize that it's 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 easier for me to get around it than most people,
Yeah.
and it has advantages but it also has disadvantages. So I think it was a lot about finding that within myself and finding that that spirit within myself, and a lot of our lessons are about how to think about music, and how to be a good person through music also. And so she works a lot. um, she loves to nurture young people and not just young violists. And so we have had many conversations about music and the music world, and how she's guided me a lot on my future and how to
Hmm.
think about music. um, and I'm really grateful for that. And she's also, I mean, viola wise, it's a lot of work on finding a very special color, and because the viola is all about sound, like
Oh yeah.
that's our virtuosity. We're not going to go play all the Paganini caprices, but
Hey.
it's really, I mean, someone can go do it. I mean, I praise that person. But but yeah, the virtuosity of the instrument is really in the sound. And um, what initially drew me to want to study with her was her sound, because I mean I don't know if you've ever heard her play, but
Oh yeah.
it's that just the sound is that she has is so colorful and so unique.
Hmm.
And it's not that I want to have that sound because I can't, no one can replicate it, but it's
Hmm.
just she guides me in how she found it within herself. And so she wants her students to find that unique voice within themselves also.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think I want to bring something up because I was just at a chamber festival myself, and
Mm,
they had like people that were 17, 18, and then also college adult people too. And
mhm,
not the 17, 18-year-olds were also phenomenal too. But it was like
mhm,
one of these 17-year-olds walked up to me and said, "Oh my gosh, you're studying with Atara Rod. I want to copy his sound. How are we ever going to live up to the sound?" And I looked at him and said, we're not meant to copy other people's sound. There were a lot of people
mhm.
back in Heifetz's day that always wanted to copy his sound, but
Yeah,
it doesn't do much justice to just be cloning
yeah.
these. So I really admire the fact that you've it's like boundary setting. You're like, okay, I really like this person's sound. Let's find out how to channel that into finding my own. That's such an important thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think it's good to bring light to this experimentation. And it's not just
Mm,
we're listening to things, copying them, and very
mm.
formulaic type of nature?
Yeah,
So
and I think if we try to copy, it's always going to be you know, you might get a little bit close. You might get close to it, but it'll always be a little bit worse, which
Hmm.
is probably not a good thing.
Because you're not them.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah,
you're lacking that
yeah,
personality aspect to it.
yeah.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Um, so you've done a lot of solo stuff. I know that.
Mm,
And I know you've done a bit of chamber music recently too, right? Tell me a little bit about
yeah.
chamber ventures that you've been doing.
Yeah, so last summer actually was my first time, going to some big chamber music festivals. I
Mhm.
did Chamberfest Cleveland and Chamberfest West, Music in the Vineyards, and the Four Seasons Chamber Music Festival, where I was like playing with professionals and
Right.
older older folks. Before then, I was doing 18 and under programs, which is a completely different. I think those are very much focused on solo and private lessons. But it was my first summer doing that, and so it was very revelatory for me to see how, you know, how how these people live and breathe music and how they really love going to these festivals because they connect with people from when they were in school together, and it's really cool to see that older generation not as teachers but also as mentors and colleagues also in a way.
Mhm.
And so I really love that collaborative aspect. And as a violist, I'll be doing a lot more of that. So this summer, actually, on Sunday, I'm leaving for Chamber Fest Cleveland again. And then after a couple weeks of that, I'm going to the Marlborough Music Festival in Vermont.
Nice.
And so I'm really excited for that because I'll be able to stay in one place for 7 weeks and kind of just play chamber music and see what I can learn from all these great artists. So I'm doing a lot more chamber music, and I will probably continue to do a lot more of that in the future, I think.
Yeah. I would hope
Yeah.
so. So I kind of got the sense when you were talking about your early days, your first chamber quartet type performance thing
Mm,
that that's kind of a passion that you have. Do you have I know as musicians we have to be versatile, all of that type of thing. We have to be
mm.
open. But do you have any path that you would like if you could do one thing, or do you want it to just be everything?
I think it's going to be a combination of things for sure.
Most
But
likely, yeah.
I mean, again, like I'm open to pretty much anything. Like I'd love to teach at some point. I'm too young now, but maybe
Oh,
at
you're
an
never too young.
institution or
You're never too young to
yeah,
teach.
yeah. But I'd love to teach somewhere at some point. I'm very open. Maybe an orchestra job. I'd love the stability, or maybe I think in my 20s I'll probably travel a lot,
Mhm.
do a lot of chamber music festivals, hopefully. Um, and yeah, I'd love to do a combination of those things. But in my 20s, I'll use that to travel a lot, and maybe in the future I'll want to settle down at some point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very cool. I feel like you can't ever lose as a musician. You have so many, we feel like we have these pathways of, oh, you're going to be a symphony musician, a teacher, a
Mhm,
collegiate teacher, chamber musician, or a
mhm,
soloist. And it's like
mhm,
you do all of them plus more.
mhm. Yeah,
It's such a cool life
yeah,
you live. You can
yeah,
kind of make it what you want.
yeah.
That's cool. You kind of have this network built up during your younger days to where you can uh,
Mhm,
take advantage of all your connections and
yeah,
perform with all these cool people. That's cool.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
do you have a favorite chamber music piece so far?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, this year I played Schoenberg, the Clarkenach, for the first time, and I had never listened to the piece before, like before this year.
Hmm.
And so I assumed that it was Schoenberg, and everyone always talks about it, but I assumed, it was Schoenberg, so it would sound,
Typical
you
Schoenberg.
know, yeah. So I didn't really look into it, but it was really revelatory and I really fell in love with it. So I think this year that was my favorite piece. Yeah. So, and I'm also playing in next week in Cleveland. So
Oh, nice. So you get to return to it with a
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, very
yeah.
cool.
So I'm excited about that.
I think that's a
Yeah.
hot take for a violist, but
Hmm.
that's a cool one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to this kind of futuristic vision, continue a little bit more into this. Um, I don't know. Maybe let's go on this train of what artistic success means to you. What would you say succeeding as an artist means, and has that vision changed as you've matured on your musical journey?
Yeah, I think it has changed for sure. I mean, I think now success for me means being fulfilled in life, in a life with music, because oftentimes, you know, people aren't fulfilled and at all levels. And I think it's hard to find that kind of balance between just running around and, you know, scrambling to do things and, you know, doing playing music because you love it. And it's hard because, you know, we have to make a living. But
Right.
so that's why I think it is hard. So I think that is what success means to me. But I think when I was younger, and I think and I'm still figuring it out, but most people think success is like winning the competition or getting, getting into the best school or getting a job really young. And I understand that, and I also went through that. But the more, the more like success that I have, the more I realize that it's not really about that. So, so yeah, yeah,
It's kind of like the way I view it is similar to like someone who gets the first $1,000 and then it gets to $10,000 and then it gets to
mm,
$100,000 and so on. And then they just keep going, oh, well, I need more type of thing.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think it boils down to the experimentation thing. Like we
mm,
almost become as artists this obsessed creature. We want to have
mm,
our voice be evolving. And if we
mm,
stop, then well, I think that's kind of what that success is. There's no such thing, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all about like it's all about in the end, it's the journey, you know, like even doing all these competitions, my teacher always tells me like what you learn is, the practicing and the experience of going there and playing on stage. That's the win. It's not, you're the same player yesterday as you were, the day after the competition, whether you won first, whether you won third, whether you got on the first round. And oftentimes, some people will go to a competition and get out in the first round and go to the next competition and win the whole thing. Like I've seen it all the time. Even people who've gotten rejected from the pre-screening. So it's just it's when it's out of your control, it's not about you.
Hmm.
It's yeah,
Usually, at least, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I like that. This I've lived by this quote, and I've gone through this different variations too as I've grown up. It's at first it was okay. There's no top. There are always further heights to reach, and that's a Heifetz quote.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
I always was like, okay, well, I'm gonna win the competition. I'm gonna do all of this. Well, now it's evolved to the same type of outlook here because
mhm,
this journey of music is much more than just a trophy. I think
mhm,
that's life advice too. We're
mhm,
only here for so long. We have to make a meaning of it. And why not?
mhm,
If we get to have the privilege of playing these wooden things for our whole life, oh my goodness, we should be
mhm.
very
Yeah,
grateful for that, I feel like.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And also I played with this like really well-known violinist last month who won all the competitions, and she told me, she was talking to me about competitions, and she said her teacher would always tell her after she would win a competition, well, High Fitz wasn't there that day, that there's always better people who weren't there that day that, would have made it so that you wouldn't have won. So it's never, there's always something more. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. This is, you have such good insight. Have you worked with Elias Goldstein yet?
I
Have you
have
taken any lessons?
not, but
He
I've
was
heard
just,
about him.
you've heard about him? He did
Mm,
Primrose and everything too. He didn't, I
mm,
can't remember what he actually placed, but his
mm,
advice sounds very similar to what you're saying, and I really
mm,
like that you've caught on to that so young. That's awesome.
mm.
Um, but
Thank you.
going to why I
I'll
said the
check into
hey
it.
to the Paganini thing was because he's the Paganini guy. So
I've seen him. I've
yeah.
seen him playing the Paganini Caprices. Sounds so good.
Yeah, he's crazy.
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
not to say that I want to copy his sound, but if I could play
yeah,
violin like him,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
that's what I tried to do. Okay, so before we wrap, I kind of want to try something out. I'm going to
Mm,
call it kind of cheesy, but we're going to go with it. Moment of resonance. Okay. Um,
okay, I like it.
if you get a sense of my personality, I'm a nerd. So
Hmm.
this can be anything. We can call it like a sentence that captures where you are right now as an artist, a phrase on your instrument. I don't even have mine, so don't worry if you don't have yours. A reflection, a quote that's kind of resonating with you right now, single word, what it means to you, kind of like a snapshot or time
Mm,
capsule to
hmm.
document this moment in your artistic journey.
Mm. Um, well, I think there's this one quote from my teacher that she always says that resonates with me a lot, and it's take the music seriously, but not yourself. And I
Ooh,
think that's a really good one because we to do well and to study well and to learn this music and do it justice, you have to take it seriously. It's not a joke, but we have to take ourselves less seriously and have more fun with it. So I like that a lot.
that is awesome. I think that is a
Yeah.
great, great quote to end on. And
Mm,
thank you so much for your time. This has been a pleasure to
yeah. Thank
finally
you so
touch base.
much
And
for
uh,
having me. Yeah.
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 Do you have anything else? Maybe like a words of wisdom from for any other violists out there, aspiring artists to
Yeah, just again, like you don't have to know what you're going to become or where you're going, and you don't have to copy anybody else's path. You have to forge your own path, and especially as violists, most modern violists have forged their own path because it wasn't a thing to become a viola soloist or even big chamber musician. So we're all figuring it out as we go. Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking
Yeah.
to you.
Thank you.
I'll
Thank
go
you for
ahead
having
and
me.